When putting together a team of heroes, it's very important to choose the right people, even if the people don't seem like heroes to you and me. In the book of John, we learn that John the Baptizer was preparing people for Jesus' coming.
He had a bunch of followers. One day, as he was talking to them, he saw Jesus walk by and told his followers, "Look, this is the Lamb of God." John's followers had been taught to look for Jesus, so when they saw him, they decided to follow.
As they followed Jesus, he turned to them and asked, "What are you looking for?" Instead of answering Jesus' question, they asked him a question. "Rabbi, where are you staying?" Jesus replied, "Come and see." So they did. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
One of those who first followed Jesus was a man named Andrew. He was so excited to meet Jesus that he went to tell his brother Simon. "We have found the Messiah," said Andrew. So Andrew took Simon to Jesus. When Jesus saw Simon, he said, "Hey, you rock!" Oops, the comma's in the wrong place. I meant to say, "Hey, you rock!" In other words, Jesus was giving Simon the new name of Peter or Cephas, which both mean rock.
When they came to the town of Galilee, Jesus saw a man named Philip and said, "Philip, come join my team." Philip agreed, but first went to tell his friend about Jesus. He looked for his friend, Nathanael, and told him that he found Jesus, the son of Joseph, the carpenter from Nazareth. Nathanael said, "Can anything from Nazareth be good?" Philip said, "Come and see."
When Jesus saw Nathanael, he said, "Here is a genuine Israelite, in whom there is no deceit." "How do you know me?" asked Nathanael. "I saw you sitting under the fig tree before Philip called you," said Jesus. Wait, what's a fig tree? Ah, a fig tree. That makes more sense. Yes, Jesus saw him sitting under a fig tree. Philip exclaimed, "Whoa, you are the Messiah."
Jesus said, "You believe me because I told you I saw you under the fig tree, but you haven't seen anything yet." These were just some of the first followers of Jesus. Now I know these guys don't really seem like heroes yet.
But after a few years of following Jesus, this group became heroes that changed the world. God can use any of us to do great things. And that's how it happened in the Bible. God has heroes everywhere. Some heroes might not be who we expect. Exodus chapters 1 and 2 tell us a story of a few wonder women who were very important in God's story. A long time ago, in a galaxy country far, far away, there was a powerful villain named Pharaoh. Pharaoh was in charge of all of Egypt. Many years before his Pharaoh, an Israelite hero, Joseph, saved Egypt from a major disaster. This new Pharaoh did not remember that bit of history. Since the time of Joseph, Israelite families had grown so much in numbers that Pharaoh was afraid they would take over the country.
Pharaoh made a plan. He decided to be mean to the Israelites and force them to build buildings and cities for him.
But this plan didn't work, so Pharaoh made another plan. His plan was to talk to 2 mad wives. That should be midwives. Pharaoh talked to 2 midwives. They were like nurses that helped deliver babies. Their names were Shiphrah and Puah. Pharaoh told them that when they helped Israelite moms have their babies, they should only allow girl babies to be born. Shiphrah and Puah chose to obey God rather than Pharaoh, so they let all the babies, boys and girls, be born.
When Pharaoh asked them why they didn't follow his orders, they said that the Israelites' women were having their babies so quickly that the midwives couldn't get there fast enough. Pharaoh now had to go to another plan. He gave orders to all his people to throw any Israelite baby into the river. Yikes!
Did that ruin God's plan to save his people? No way. God only needed one plan, and it was a good one. He had more wonder women on his side. One of them had a baby boy, but hid him for 3 months to keep him safe. When she could no longer hide him, she made him a little boat.
Well, It was a life raft, actually.
Actually, it was a floating basket. She put him in it and let him float in the grass and the Nile River.
Now, it just so happened that Pharaoh's daughter, the princess, was headed for a bath around the same time. As she went to bathe in the river, she found the baby boy floating in the basket. And here's where we see one more Wonder Woman in this story. The boy's sister, Miriam.
She stood near the grass in the river and watched her brother. When she saw the princess holding her brother, Miriam boldly asked if the princess would like for her to find an Israelite woman to feed and take care of the baby. The princess liked this idea, so Miriam got the baby's mother to do it. The princess paid the baby's mother to take care of her own baby. When he was old enough, Miriam's mother took the boy to the princess to live in the palace with her. This boy would eventually grow up to be the man of God who we know as Moses, the very person who would lead all the Israelites out of Egypt into freedom.
And to think that Moses may not have been able to do all these great things if it weren't for these Wonder Women choosing to trust God and help others. Big or small, God can use anyone to do great things. And that's how it happened in the Bible.
If you have ever heard stories from the Bible, then you've probably heard of a guy named Moses. Remember him? The guy who was floating in a basket as a baby, raised by a princess, talked to a burning bush, then led the Israelites out of Egypt into freedom. He was definitely a great person in the Bible, but this story is not really about him.
It's about someone who helped Moses do the things God wanted him to do. His name was Jethro. He was Moses' wife's father, his father-in-law.
Like any proud father-in-law, Jethro kept up with all the great things God was doing through Moses. Moses led the Israelite people out of Egypt, and they were now camped in the desert at God's mountain. Remember, this story is about Jethro. When Jethro heard that Moses and the Israelites were camped in the desert, he brought Moses' wives and sons out to the camp. Moses was very excited to see them. He ran over to Jethro, bowed down, and kissed him. Close enough.
After the reunion, Jethro and Moses went to his tent where Moses told Jethro all that God had done to rescue them and bring them this far. Jethro praised God, saying, "Now I know that God is the greatest." Jethro even brought an offering and sacrifice to God, and they all ate together in the presence of God.
The next day, Moses went to work as a judge. He worked all day helping all the Israelites solve their conflicts. He also taught them about God's rules and instructions for living. Although this all sounded like a good thing, Jethro noticed that Moses was doing all of this every day, all by himself. He told Moses that if he kept working like this, he was going to burn out. Jethro then gave Moses some great advice. He told Moses, "You should still teach the people about God's ways and speak to God for them. You should still handle the big conflicts, but the smaller conflicts should be handled by other leaders." Jethro told Moses that he should be delicate. No, not delicate. He should delegate.
In other words, he should let others help him with leading. They should work together. If he does this, then he will be able to serve God and the people longer, and they will all be happier.
Since Jethro was Moses' father-in-law and his advice was very wise, Moses did everything Jethro suggested. He chose leaders to help the Israelites. Satisfied with how this all worked out, Jethro said goodbye to Moses and went back to his own country.
The Bible is full of people like Jethro who didn't get much credit, but who made a huge difference. Big or small, God can use any of us to do great things. Just like Jethro encouraged Moses to work with others to accomplish God's plan. And that's how it happened in the Bible. The book of Luke tells us that Jesus was born in a stable in Bethlehem many years ago. While in the stable, he was visited by shepherds who got a very special invitation from an angel. Have you ever gotten a special invitation?
Well, the book of Matthew tells us about some people living in the East who got a very special invitation to Jesus' birth. It was delivered by a star. No, not that kind of star. It was an actual star, like one in the sky. Well, if you ever get such a special invitation to such a special celebration, you'd better have some very special gifts. And they did.
Let's fast forward from the night of Jesus' birth. Mary and Joseph have now upgraded from a stable in Bethlehem to a house. Herod is king of the land, living in nearby Jerusalem. One day, the people from the east showed up in Jerusalem. They were astronomers. No, not astronauts. They were astronomers. You know, stargazers, people who study the skies.
Some people have called these people kings, but really, they were educated, wise people called magi. They had been studying, waiting, and listening for the time when a sign would lead them to the newborn King of Jews. At last, a bright star had appeared in the sky, and they followed it from a long distance.
Now, a king's palace seems like a logical place to start searching for a new king. So these magi paid a visit to King Herod. After they explained their mission to Herod, he became very unhappy to hear about the royal competition. Actually, he was more than unhappy. Herod was upset. Very upset. Very, very upset.
He was so upset that he wanted to get rid of this new king. Herod consulted his lawyers and priests and found that there was a prophecy about a king being born in Bethlehem. Although they knew of this prophecy, they didn't bother to travel the 5 miles to check it out. Instead, Herod sent the Magi to Bethlehem and asked them to let him know where the baby was so he could also honor the newborn king.
The Magi left Herod's palace in Jerusalem and continued to follow the star. This time, it did not lead them to a palace. Instead, it led them to a house. It gave them so much joy to see the star settle over their final destination. The Magi entered the house and saw Mary and the little baby Jesus. They fell to their knees and honored Jesus with their gifts of mold, francs 2 cents, and myrrh. Wait, that can't be right. It should be gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
Not only had the Magi studied the prophecy about Jesus' birth, they also listened to it. The gift of gold was a present fit for a king. Frankincense was something that was great to smell and was often used in worshiping God, and myrrh is also something nice smelling, but was used in burials.
After the party and the gifts, the Magi were tired and left to find rest. While they slept, they were warned in a dream to stay away from Herod and not to tell him where Jesus was.
When they awoke, they went home, taking a different route to avoid running into Herod again. These Magi listened to the prophecy and followed the sign God gave them. And that's how it happened in the Bible. In the book of Acts, we learn about the start of the church after Jesus' death and resurrection.
Not everyone was a fan of this new church, however. One of these people was a man named Saul. He did not like people following Jesus.
I mean, he really didn't like people following Jesus. Saul devised a plan to get rid of these followers of Jesus. He decided to head to a city called Damascus to find and arrest anyone who was following Jesus. This was Saul's plan. But as the Bible teaches us over and over, human ways are not always God's ways.
On his way to Damascus, Saul saw a bright light. I said he saw a bright light. This was a powerful light, a blinding light. Much better.
The powerfully blinding light flashed all around Saul, and he fell to the ground. Then he heard a voice asking, "Saul, why are you harassing me?" Saul asked, "Who are you?" "I am Jesus," was the reply. "Now, go into the city and you will be told what to do." As Saul stood up, he realized that he could not see. His friends led him into Damascus, where he was unable to see for 3 days.
About that time, the Lord was talking to another man, Ananias, who was a follower of Jesus. Go to Judas's house and ask for a man named Saul. I want you to restore his sight. Ananias wasn't too sure about this plan at first.
Lord, have you heard the news? This guy has been hurting your people. Go, said the Lord. Saul is the one I want to take my message to the world. Ananias said, "Okie dokie," and went to find Saul. When he found Saul, he touched him and told Saul that the Lord sent him. Immediately, something like snails fell from his eyes. Sorry, I should have said something like scales fell from his eyes, and he could see again.
After this healing, Saul stayed in Damascus, teaching in the synagogues that Jesus is the Son of God. Many of the people were confused, saying, "Isn't this the same guy that wanted to arrest us?" Many days went by, and some of the people started to think they should get rid of Saul. They hung out by the city gates day and night, waiting to hurt him. The friends of Saul heard about the plan to hurt Saul, so they devised a great escape plan.
The first thing they did was find a basket. It was a large basket. Okay, it was actually a huge basket, large enough for Saul to get inside. Then, his friends tied a rope around the basket and lowered it through an opening in the wall. I should say they carefully and safely lowered the basket through an opening in the wall. Saul made it down to the ground and away from those wanting to hurt him.
From that time on, Saul preached about Jesus. His teaching spread to the entire world. Saul spoke a lot about grace, because he not only received grace from Jesus, but also from the people like Ananias and his friends with the basket. Although these people were scared of Saul at first, they listened to God's calling and showed Saul grace by helping him. And that's how it happened in the Bible.